This is an intro that is totally improvised and unprofessional. We're gonna go through backstory. We're gonna go through build stuff. We're gonna go through trinket stuff. Sure. We just had a 10-15 minute conversation about your backstory, which we'll just summarize real quick. That you are Arkin, the Tiefling Shadow Sorcerer. You've got a dad who's like a wizard type who is mad that you were embracing your bloodline kind of powers.
What's his name, by the way?
That is a good question. You could make that up. I could make that up.
I don't know Tiefling names off the top of my head, but yeah. I'll do some research.
Well, and I know what I do when I'm trying to think of a name, because I'm terrible at thinking of names on the spot. Yeah. That's my one thing. I can improv a whole D&D session. You guys saw one time when you guys is like, oh, let's go to that tower, and I'm like, shit, that's the one thing I haven't prepped. But the one thing I can't improv is names, so I always have like a list of like 10 fantasy names off to the side, and I can improv literally anything else. But one thing I will do is if there's a particular culture that they're inspired by or that they're from, like if my wife's telling me about some cultural thing from Philippines and that inspires a character, then I will look up a Philippine like a Tagalog translation for whatever word is kind of tied to that character. So if they're like a very generous person or something, I'll look up the translation for generosity and use that to inspire the name of the person.
Nice.
So that's a little trick, but we don't have to do that on the spot. We can do that later.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. But so you got the dad who pushes the wizardry stuff, and now you have since left, snatched an artifact, got out of there, linked up with the group. We've discussed how your intelligence is actually the same as Bud's, and as a character thing, you'll probably start agreeing with him every once in a while, just because you guys are the exact same level intellectually.
Yeah. Him because he's just naturally stupid, and while I am stupid, it's just more of a environmental contextual stupid, because I am completely out of my element, fish out of water.
And so. I do also picture it as like your dad's been trying to get you to do book learning research for magic in your whole life, and he spent your whole upbringing trying to get you to know intelligence-based magic, and you so didn't have any interest that you because they never like taught you anything else. You have no background in any other like skill sets. That like the dad who like says you will be a professor of physics, and you just went like through lessons for 20 years.
I get into skateboarding instead,
right?
Parkour, whatever the D&D
whatever the D&D kids are doing these days.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, that's and that ties into, we had sort of an inside joke of being bad dads, and so that kind of ties in also like having kind of a bad dad, and he never accepted you for your natural ability and your natural inklings, and so that can be interesting.
Yeah. Accept me for who I am, Dad.
Yeah. He said, I'm never gonna cast a wizard spell. It's just not gonna happen. I with the 6 intelligence, I kind of picture you trying like for years probably, and being like, this isn't happening, and then just
this will not be too dissimilar to real life. I have, in order for me to learn anything in real life, anything new, I feel it has to be super gamified. Like, yeah. Otherwise, I'm just not gonna I'm gonna zone out.
Right. I have a similar problem with working out, where I cannot exercise unless
it's gamified. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless it's part of a thing.
Yeah.
Like when I was into jiu-jitsu for a while, I got in really good shape when I was doing like jiu-jitsu and kickboxing at the same time.
Yeah.
And like a couple of years doing that, I was doing splits, and I could fight people like 50 pounds heavier than me with like of muscle, and just be like, yeah, it's fine. And then like I sprained my ankle choking a guy, and it was like, oh, we'll just do like push-ups and curls and stuff, and I'm like, I
what's my motivation?
Right. I'm like, no one's trying to choke me. Why would I put effort into lifting a thing over and over?
Yeah.
So yeah, I got to get into climbing or
Uh,
something
v
again.
for me, it's VR.
Mm,
VR, like I do VR boxing and like VR, like
mm.
Beat Saber. It's like nice cardio workout. So,
Yeah, that sounds good actually.
yeah.
Oh. All right. I have never successfully done any of these without a tangent, and monkeys was an hour and a half because when you know somebody for like 20 years, it's just tangents every other sentence.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I think the quickest was Adams at like 40 minutes,
Dang.
and that was only because I was like, oh, we're like almost done at like 30 minutes, and then we went on a
Yeah.
tangent about something else. So backstory, we got that pretty figured out. As far as a location that you're kind of tied to, I was wondering if you wanted to be to have your like that wherever you grew up be the Asarius, the city of Ys, or more like the capital um, uh, of the
I was
Grid
thinking in a
Dynasty.
Fat Cat privileged district, whatever that would
Yeah,
like.
so that'd
Yeah.
probably more likely be over in the capital.
All right.
Um, and
Because that would
yeah.
fall in line with my lack of intelligence of not having any worldly experience.
Right. Yeah. You've been that perfect combination of you were completely provided for, so you never had to really learn anything,
Yeah.
and the thing that you were forced to learn you had no talent or interest in, and yeah, has led you to where you're at now, which is hucking ice knives at people and hoping it works out.
Yeah.
So as far as the build, you went for that Tiefling Sorcerer. What was it that interested you in the build?
Well, getting a little out of my comfort zone
Mm.
without having to pick Bard. Um,
Yeah.
I still don't have enough faith in my. I mean, I'm in another campaign. I'm playing with somebody with like high charisma, and I find half the time I'm expected to do the talking, and it's like I no, my improv skills are horrible.
Oh, okay.
So I picked somebody who's kind of like shy and sitting on the back end while also.
Right.
I mean, I've been doing ranger and fighter was the first one before that. So it's like I'm
Yeah.
just gonna go for like somebody who is doesn't have any clue what they're doing and is a fish out of water, so that when I do make fuck ups, they're completely within my character to do so.
Right.
So yeah,
And you have that like you have a very high charisma, and but it's a it shows the importance of the other soft stats of like
yeah,
knowing how to use a magnetic personality. So like
yeah,
people are drawn to you, and then when people ask for advice, you're like, I don't know what you want me to what?
yeah.
They're like, what should we do in this war? And you're like, I know no history whatsoever.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm like one of those grifters or like one of those YouTube self-help experts where like
right.
the surface can look endearing, but if you look right below that, it's just like, what the hell are you talking about, man?
They can say it in a charismatic manner, but under the surface, there's nothing going on.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of fair. Except that you're playing a very like I assume neutral good is kind of the leaning on there because you're just like a good guy. You think good things should be done.
yeah.
We have a
I hate
responsibility to try to make good decisions.
I hate
Um,
cops, but I don't have enough faith in my ability to have a better system. So
right.
neutral good.
You're one of those like I don't know if anarchy would work, but I also don't like a ton of what's going on as far as stuff. But
Yeah,
I know. I think somebody explained Spider-Man as neutral good because he's obviously he does good, and he thinks that laws should exist, but he's also outside of the laws and doesn't feel that he is necessarily responsible for enforcing random laws where if they
yeah,
don't apply to goodness. Um, where
yeah.
if
I can
he
see that.
like if he sees somebody jaywalking and there's no danger to anyone, he's just swing on by. But sees
Yeah,
somebody trying to steal a car, he's gonna be like, "Hey, wait a minute, you're harming someone,"
yeah,
and swing in to try to solve that.
yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. I know sorcerers have a very limited spell selection is often a thing for them. You get to mitigate that a little bit with Shadow Sorcerer got darkness that
Yeah,
you can cast, and then and Tiefling has those racial spells. They give you another couple of options.
yeah. Was
Um,
that the infernal? Was it infernal legacy with like
mm,
hellish rebuke and yeah.
right, and then I think yeah, fifth level you get access to another spell
Oh, nice.
as well, and that depends on which type of Tiefling you go with from all that stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, that makes for some good options to expand on that, so you can kind of just mitigate that sort of restriction to the class.
Cool.
And then sorcery points. Are you like do you have a particular kind of meta magic that you feel like you're going to use most often, or?
I've mostly been the stuff I've been going with is mostly like ice and defense.
Right.
I wasn't really. I don't think I have any themes or anything like picked out for that.
Okay.
But
because I think there's things like subtle spell, so that you can cast things while sneaking around, and it doesn't like set off a thing.
yeah,
And there's like twin spell and quicken to like do something as a bonus action, so you have your action to do something else. That's probably the one I'd most recommend.
I did pick up subtle spell. That's right, so that I can cast stuff without
doing anything basically.
Components.
Without
Yeah,
verbal
and then empowered spell was the other one I picked up. So when I roll for damage, I can spend a sorcery point to re-roll 5 of the die if I don't like it.
Up to 5 of the dice, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as meta magic, that's all I picked up.
Yeah, I mean that can be handy, and then at some point you might pick up that quicken spell could be really good, especially for you, because that ability to take your action spell and make it a bonus action, you then can't cast a spell as your action unless it's a cantrip. That's a bonus action casting rule. But that's still pretty good. Like if you have whatever your damaging cantrip you have, at higher levels.
I do have Firebolt and Chill Touch.
So being able to do like eventually like Fireball and then Firebolt in the same turn can be really good. And then partial segue, we'll bring it up again later, but your trinket that you've got, the spell sword, I think you know the most about your thing versus everybody.
Yeah.
Because you went and got it identified and then also tested it out in combat and all that.
Yeah.
So so it's I mean, you know this, but anybody watching, the spell sword, it's a sword hilt that works as a spellcasting focus. And you've already enhanced the enchantment on it to give you +1 on your spell attacks. Whenever you cast a spell that uses a material component that has that doesn't have a gold piece value, then that's when you actually channel the spell through the spell focus, and that'll activate the spell blade, and that just is a blade of force that gets ignited, and you can use it for a number of attacks equal to the level of spells that you've cast through it. So like if you cast a second level spell that meets those component requirements, it'll activate for up to 2 attacks that you can make with it. It takes an action to make the attack. So that could be cool, where you go like Fireball on the group of enemies that's far away, and then turn and like attack somebody who's close to melee. That can be cool with Quicken.
Homebrew, by the way, did you make that up? Because I was not able to find that. Okay.
No,
cool.
That's completely made up.
Cool.
So and made up because we did our trinkets this time around by me cutting art out of Magic the Gathering cards, and like just setting them face down and saying, "All right, pick one."
Gotcha.
I shuffled them. I don't know which one's which either, and you went with that. I've got it in the corner there, but that cool. I remember being disappointed by what that card actually is when I played Magic the Gathering, but that way. Everything's turned around. But the art is amazing, and I need to look up the artist on that actually. But yeah, it's really cool.
Thanks.
But yeah, so it's a rad item. It's technically, I don't think of it as that powerful. It gives you a pretty good melee spell attack option, but it's restricted based on you casting spells, and it has to be of a certain kind of spell, which you have some. You use those kinds of spells.
Yeah.
And it's not that it does like a D8 damage with like a bonus equal to the highest spell you've cast through it. So
I'm just not completely screwed when I'm in melee range.
Yeah, you get to cast something and get it set up, and then when things close to melee, you have an option that isn't like, there's Shocking Grasp is like a spell people get, but you don't have to have that.
Cool.
I liked it. That was one of my probably one of my favorites. I thought of the ones that went through. I was like, oh, this would be really rad.
Oh,
Partly,
did you say that to all the trinkets?
partly because that was my first D&D character was a sorcerer fighter combo,
Oh,
and
nice.
it mechanically was awful. It didn't work that well in that edition, but it was, but I still love it. Like, still really cool. And to this day, I'm what they call the Gish. Whenever I get to play, I'm always the sword and spell guy.
Oh.
To circle back, you have any future multi-class or feat desires that you've thought of thinking ahead for the character?
I have not. I should probably start looking at that.
No
But
worries. There's not a ton of feat choices. There's a feat where you can like overcome elemental damage resistance, and you have to take the feat for each element that you want to have empowered that way. So that can be handy if you're going to be like entirely ice spells or entirely fire spells or a combination of the two.
oh yeah,
Then it'd be
okay.
kind of worth it because like there's a lot of things that resist fire damage. Like in the monster manual, it's one of the more resisted types, and if you wanted to lean into fire spells for like roleplay and game purposes, it'd be
Yeah,
useful for you to be able to overcome that resistance. Um,
that would be.
so there's that. There's also multi-classing is also an option because you're currently holding like a cool magic melee weapon. So like if you went into like a hexblade warlock, that's something that they're both charisma casters, and the hexblade gets it's a warlock thing where you are tied to like a conscious weapon of some kind,
Damn.
and so it wouldn't be a stretch if you wanted to go that route. It wouldn't be a stretch for there to be some sort of latent consciousness in the sword hilt, and something that can then that speaks to you and awakens another path of power for you.
Yeah, that might fit for the
Right.
whole theme of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and then and they also get like light and medium armor proficiency, I believe,
Nice.
and if you stick with sorcerer, so you can pick up quicken spell. Um, quicken spell and eldritch blast is kind of nuts, where you can be like. Bonus action Eldritch Blast, action Eldritch Blast. Some people dip into fighter to go then action surge Eldritch Blast, and but
Yeah, I think one of the first campaigns I played with you, I had a character with something like that, and I was
yeah,
like, I do like this.
yeah,
So
it is. It's nice, and some people like to crap on it, but I don't see it as different than like a fighter using a bow. Like a fighter using a bow is like fire my bow, fire my bow, fire my
yeah,
bow, and like Eldritch Blast, Eldritch Blast, Eldritch Blast. It's like it's kind of the same thing.
yeah,
So just because it has a simple, straightforward, and reliable mechanic doesn't make it bad or lacking in roleplay opportunities or anything.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
you can still have fun with it.
Yep. Like in theory, Legolas just fired his bow all the time. Like most of the time, that's pretty much all he did. With a couple exceptions. But
No shame in that. And he rode
yeah,
that shield down that staircase.
hell yeah.
So
Like, why couldn't you ride a shield down a staircase and fire Eldritch blasts? That sounds fine to
yeah,
me.
yeah,
So yeah, if you decide you want to go that route, that's cool. There's also like Celestial Warlock if you want to get a little different flair. They're more of a like a healing kind of class.
I'm writing
Um,
these down to research them later.
oh, okay, that sounds fine. And then any of those you like and feel like a connection to, be like, oh, it would be cool to like if this blade was tied to a celestial being of some kind.
Yeah,
And I started to hear and like channel that power through this blade, and then that would be like you go celestial warlocked and then go pack to the blade eventually and get some blade abilities, or if you more just like if it tied to another conscious blade or something, picking up hex
yeah.
blade and all that.
I
But
think I'm just scared of being too squishy for melee, but yeah, that.
well, yeah, the hexblade's fun because you don't have to be the melee guy.
Yeah,
Even though you're tied to some sort of semi-sentient or sentient weapon, is sort of the given flavor text for it. But for me, it's more any patron that you've connected with is just channeling the certain types of powers, the ability to lay curses down and better defend yourself and that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
I know I love builds sometimes where someone goes like Hexblade, Pact of the Chain. So they want the Hexblade stuff and they want a like little familiar that helps them out. So they don't have a big old like a blade that they summon out of nowhere. They
Yeah.
just they make use of their abilities in another way.
Yeah.
So yeah, look into those cross classes that you might want to go into.
Okay.
You usually want to stick with that primary casting class till you hit the 3rd level spells at level 5. Because
Okay.
picking up options like I think hold person might be 2nd level, but picking up a lot of like control options, a good area of effect option like fireball, and before you switch into those other classes can be good.
Okay.
And you can always just stick with straight Shadow Sorcerer too. Just working the base class can be cool.
Yeah, I think so far, Hexblade Warlock seems like the most enticing. It's just looking at stuff here.
It's pretty rad, and if we wanted to do something where you have sort of a character arc of some kind of corruption coming up through the blade, something happens where the blade gets tainted, and instead of force damage, it starts doing necrotic damage. But you don't want to give it up either, and it can start talking to you and doing weird stuff. And
so the different types of damages, there's always like piercing damage and fire damage and whatnot. Does necrotic damage does it ever
does it ever come up or?
Yeah, does it? Yeah, because it feels like that one's a rarity.
So the way damages are interesting to think of is they don't matter until they matter. Where like if you're hitting somebody for a D8 ice damage or you're hitting them for a D8 fire damage, that doesn't matter unless you're fighting a red dragon, and then that fire damage does nothing, and the ice damage, if they're vulnerable, does extra, and that kind of thing. So there's sort of the Pokemon effect of if your damage type is resisted or not, but otherwise
I wasn't sure if it would be like a damage over time or like Game of Thrones where they get like touched by the bark skin and then slowly they become barky or something.
That would be rad, but no, it's not like that. It's it's just whether you're getting hit with a hammer or an axe or a spear.
I thought so. I just wasn't sure if there was like a cool thing to it. Like, man, like once you're burned by enough fire, you get, you become ash. Once you get iced by enough ice, you become ice. But necrotic damage is like.
I mean, I think there are games where that would happen, where if you take a critical hit of necrotic damage, you might lose the use of that limb for until you can get like a lesser restoration or something on it to get it.
That's pretty cool. In my opinion, that's pretty cool.
I do like that kind of stuff too sometimes. I always hate if your guys are heading into a big grind, like you're going into a dungeon or into the wilderness, and then I'm like, and your leg doesn't work. Good luck with the next 8 sessions. Then I'm a little more hesitant on that. Where if you're on your way out and it's like, oh, you took 40 necrotic damage. It's like you blocked with your arm and that arm doesn't work right now. Like it's shriveled and half dead. And it's like, well, now it's just time to get back to town, and so it like adds a little flavor to the get back to town thing. But not everybody's always up for that kind of thing. They're like, some people want a more game the game kind of thing, and be like, what, a restriction that's not in the rules? How dare you?
It reminds me of the I forget his name, Peter Molyneux, the guy behind that Fable game. One of the game mechanics he wanted to put in there was that when your character in the video game broke his leg, you had to wait 7 weeks in real time before it healed. And players were so upset with the mechanic during the testing that they would just unplug their console. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
I enjoyed challenges like that.
But... Yeah, but that is definitely an instance of one person's fun being somebody else's torture.
Yeah.
I know Monkey and I, when we were talking about on his one, we talked about 3rd edition and how he liked it a lot because it was really crunchy, and you really had to get into the game and calculate a bunch of things to get the best outcomes. And then I'm more like 5th edition, where it's like, well, the power level's a little more centralized,
Yeah.
and you can lean onto your roleplay goals and stuff a little more. And if you want to play like an orc sorcerer versus a tiefling sorcerer, like, you're a point behind. It's not that big of a disadvantage.
Yeah.
To not pick the perfect combos, so you can just play the character you want to play. But yeah, he was definitely like, the comparison I had for it was that I have played exactly one Resident Evil game, because I got to the inventory management and about threw my console out the window. And, and I was just like, just so unfun. Just like, you have this case and you need to play Tetris to get all your stuff to the next area.
Yeah.
And I was like, what like,
there was another game that did that, Deus Ex, and then the sequel came out and it did all that automatically. And I remember I was like, wow, it does it automatically, and I was like, wait, they just solved a problem they created. No. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another way to look at it. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, same on that. Let's see. Possible warlock multiclasses are good. I would almost recommend some bard multiclassing, but it sounds like you already kind of get some bard flavor satisfied in other areas.
Yeah.
And it's not going bard sorcerer. There's not a ton of reasons to do that I can think of off the top of my head. Just because you don't get anything in particular you wouldn't get anyways just from staying in sorcerer.
Yeah.
Except for some skill stuff, I guess, but I don't know. There's not a huge reason. Plus, with your shyness and stuff, I don't picture you picking up a banjo and trying to be a leadership kind of thing.
No, I imagine I just follow Bud everywhere and try and learn everything he does, almost to an embarrassing cringy level.
Right. And if you wanted to lean into that, going into doing a fighter multiclass can be actually really powerful if you're doing a primary spellcaster like a sorcerer, because that one level spell around rule doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
It's purely a bonus action specific rule. So
Okay.
if you quicken spell and do an action spell as a bonus action, then you got to worry about only casting a cantrip as your action. But if you use action
Yeah.
surge, you can totally go fireball, action surge, fireball. There's nothing wrong with
Okay.
that mechanically. And yeah, double fireball is always fun. Plus, you then can't do quicken spell, bonus action, fire bolt, because the way the rule of bonus action spellcasting works. If you're doing any spell as a bonus action, then you can only do cantrips with actions. So
Okay.
even if that spell's a cantrip as a bonus action, so
Okay.
you can go fireball as a bonus action, fire bolt as an action, fire bolt as an action surge. That's allowed. But it might be better to go fireball, because this just sounds rad to me, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another different way to lean into sword play on top of your spellcasting stuff. So
Okay.
so you got a couple of options, and you could honestly take all of them. So if you go some sorcerer, and then you do some warlock, and then you do a little bit of fighter, or whatever combination of that.
Yeah.
All that can be pretty powerful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I have the stupid MacBook with a loud ass keyboard, so if my note taking is picking up on mic, I can mute myself when I'm typing.
No worries. I have the opposite thing, where the pencil that I chose to use is the same primary color as the backdrop, so I get to have my invisible pen.
Oh, nice. It's with invisible ink.
Yep. It's that the Invisible Wand song from D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
Got your invisible wand. All right. So the place you're familiar with is the capital, which I don't remember the name of off the top of my head. I think it's Jorhas is the nation. Roshana, I think, is the capital.
Okay.
I think so. And Dylan's character is from the same place, so
Okay.
you two kind of showing up like, it's good to be home, and you go like, oh yeah, this is my home too. And it's
Yeah.
like, why have you never mentioned that? And it's like, have you mentioned this? And it's like, yes, many times. Be like, I wasn't paying attention.
I don't know, man. I've known Dylan for like 10 years now, and I keep forgetting where he was born. So,
That's fair. Yeah. Yeah. In real life, you don't remember where he was born, so that's fair. And you got the NPC is going to be the wizard dad. Probably won't have him as someone who can cast like time stop or anything like that, but and it's not like he's an ally necessarily either, because he very very directly doesn't approve of what you're doing. But now technically nothing you're doing is illegal. There's nothing wrong like legality in the society wise of being a sorcerer and living your life walking around. He just doesn't approve based on his own view of arcane magics and what should be done with them, and so that can be
I was kind of picturing him just being like, oh, my son ran away, well, I'll send the search party, not like an active like search, but he's just expecting the cops to bring me home, and be it
might be like he's expected to throw like 100 gold at some investigator once a month.
Don't tell anybody about this, or when they find me, but like it's like a half-assed investigation.
Well, and it's not like you ran away to like start a slave guild or something. Like there's nothing too nefarious about it and he's probably aware that his own views of sorcery don't run in line with the majority. Like nobody really has a problem with sorcery in the society, so it's probably not viewed with as much favor as wizardry, just because wizardry gives you access to that dunamancy magic. But still, he's I think that's a solid RP stuff to go through.
Cool.
And then you're gonna look up possible warlock multi-classes and let me know if one of those appeals to you, and we'll kind of work it into the story.
It's probably gonna be Hexblade, just looking at what
and there might be a cool opportunity for that this next game on Sunday. Depending on what you guys do. I think I could see that actually happening based on where you're heading. And then wouldn't be too worried about feat stuff. You'll have a good variety of damage stuff, so it's not like there's a great specialty thing on that. There is a Warcaster is good. If you do more concentration spells, it gives you advantage on concentration checks or constitution saves for concentration. Wow, they needed to throw some different words in that. So there's that, and it lets you when you get when there's an attack of opportunity, like somebody runs past you, you can then use a spell that has a single target instead of making an attack. That wouldn't necessarily always be great for you, just because you have access to a solid weapon attack. So it would, I don't know if that would be a priority necessarily. So you probably want to just like cap your charisma. If you end up with Hexblade, then you don't need to worry about other stats for your weapon attacks, because you use charisma. You pick a weapon, and all of your attacks with that weapon use your charisma modifier instead of strength or dex. And technically, the way they worded it means it can be any one-handed melee weapon, but it can also be a hand crossbow for some reason, just because of how, I don't know how flavorful that is. Some dark magic intelligent hand crossbow is like whispering to people from the depths of the Underdark or something. That sounds really rad. Now I gotta go make that. And so, and then you got your spell sword. There's not much you don't know about it, except that when you saw the painting, the person in the painting wielding it is an actual person. It's a historical figure that your dad knows who that is, and most anybody at his kind of level would know who that is.
Okay.
But you have no idea. You didn't pay attention to that section at all.
All right.
He just like, oh hey, that's my sword, and then it moved on. And that is a thing I made up 10 seconds ago.
Right.
but I can work that into the story. That's just a cool point for me to work into the story stuff and the background and all that. Where
Sure. Yeah.
there's some famous spell and sword warrior, probably like a wizard Echo Knight class combo or something, or like a celestial warlock packed with the blade mixed with a like a paladin or something. Warlock paladins are always fun for me, but I don't know if you're gonna go paladin at any point. I don't know if that doesn't really fit the personality or anything. I think, but
Yeah. No, I feel like that's a little too pure.
yeah, you're like, I'm trying to do good things, but like I'm not here to give praise and set up meetings or anything. One of those.
Yeah. No.
One of those. I'll do good stuff, but I'm not setting up chairs.
Yeah. No. I'm more of a help out after the problem's been dealt with, not like deal with the problem.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, looking at all that, I know I always like Hexblade can be appealing, but I also, for me personally, I always like the idea when there's a light and dark kind of thing going on. So
Sure.
having a Shadow Sorcerer with Celestial Warlock, that's just something I like for thematic reasons.
Okay.
But
No, I trust your judgment because you often know how to.
well, that's an RP thing that I like to explore for myself.
Sure.
But I could see you going with that Hexblade idea of you didn't listen to your dad about embracing a certain path to power, and I could see like another path to power presents itself to you, and you're like, my dad would say not to do this. I'll sign right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And picking that up, and like eventually when you eventually come around to your dad, you will have accumulated several sources of power that he doesn't approve of, and then it'll be a question of whether you prove him right or prove him wrong.
Yeah.
That'll come
Got
out.
my tattoos and mohawk, Dad.
Yeah, I got my
I can
tattoos.
still get a job.
I got my tattoos and mohawk, and I make more than you.
Yeah. What do you think of me now?
Yeah, or it's like, I got my tattoos and mohawk, and I am.
I'm in a lot of trouble.
I am in several handcuffs.
Please help bail me out, Dad.
Yeah. Shows up with sees you at the precinct with your sorcery and warlock powers.
Yeah.
You're like, you're coming home and you're reading a book. Like, okay, Dad.
Okay. Can I still not come to church on Saturdays?
Oh man, good times.
Cool.
Well, I think we got it. I kind of wish I hadn't effed up the first 15 minutes, but oh well.
Oh, you're fine.
That's technology.
We'll just never get that time back. That's okay.
Yeah, it's just gone forever. It's fine.
It's the one resource we can't get back. It's the only resource we have.
Yep.
No.
We have an infinite amount of and a limited amount of, yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your guidance in setting all this up. It's very, very much appreciated.
No worries. I always like, I don't know if I'd call you a new player yet, but at this point, but
I am one of those players that always forgets the fucking rules right before every fucking game because I often just. Oh, sorry. I don't know if your stream is going for curse free.
Fuck it at this point.
Okay. I just after long days of work, the last thing is just like. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a problem. Do your best. Try to know your abilities. Try to make spell cards or whatever helps you. But when you picked up,
makes that super easy.
Yeah, I saw when you picked up D&D Beyond. That was probably really a good tool for that.
Yeah.
I can't do it because I grew up too much with too much paper.
Oh yeah, and plus like the back of your hand, so you're good.
Well, it's just because I'm like obsessive compulsive and I like learn everything about any hobby I'm in, and that's all I do.
The only thing in life I've ever been that obsessive about is Naughty Dog games, like The Last of Us and Uncharted. Like I know those backwards and forwards, but D&D for whatever reason. It's just
Like I know when I did the jiu-jitsu and kickboxing stuff, it was like every day, like having just something on in the background was pretty constant, and every day was like jiu-jitsu videos of like different techniques and like and all that kind of stuff. And
oh yeah, then you're built for this.
right. Now those are just like character build and story building options.
Sweet.
All right. Well, I'm gonna log us off here.
Alrighty.
Y'all have a good night. We'll see you
See
Sunday.
you later, Twitchers and streamers.
Oh, I don't think anybody showed up, but that's fine. Yeah, stab it out.
Good night.
Bye. That's at 6 with a 6, right? Other way around, but okay. So wizardry's not happening. I know, and you had the single. I'll put it this way. I've never been more jealous of a stat roll. Because you were like, it was something like 17, 15, and then it was like 5 and 3. And it was like, I was like, oh man, he's so amazing at what he needs to be amazing at, and just awful at other things. And it's just that's a heaping pile of like roleplay opportunity while still being very powerful mechanically for your build. So that's funny to me because you and Bud have the same intelligence score. Yeah, yeah, you're both at a 6. Yeah. Oh no, I am. Oh no, this might be a disaster because I think I just looked at the desktop audio and it has there's no movement when you're talking, which oh no. Let me see something here.
Or nobody heard a word.
Oh no, that did just happen. Oh, that's awful.
That's all right.
Oh god. Well, I guess we'll back up a step. Damn.
We were talking about how I was schooling you on all of the D&D ins and outs.
It's true.
And,
it's true.
Yeah.
This is well, I'm gonna cut all this out. Oh god. Damn it.
That sucks.
That sucks so bad.
Even for the stream, they weren't getting it?
Yeah, no, nothing. It was through OBS, and
That's okay.
Because I've been trying, because for some reason, like, it works sometimes and doesn't work other times when I'm plugging in my headphones.
Yeah.
And then so I was just focused on that, and then I've everyone else, of all 4 other players, I've done like, okay, cool, I think we're set up, let's record. I'll listen back to the recording, make sure it's working, and now we'll go to the stream. And this time I'm like, I've done it 4 times.
Yeah, I got it down.
What could go wrong?
Got it down, stat.
Apparently everything.
That sucks.
All right, well, I guess we'll just cut from there. And luckily we lost like 10 minutes of actual good stuff, but whatever. All right, so